time consuming.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ed Parko with Brian Galkey, and we are. Did I say that right? Galkey. Sorry.
Galkey. He said it.
It's one of those Tuesdays. You never know. And we're Aces53, which is attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile is what you bring to the table in sales. And that Joker is that unique ability you have, which is the 53rd card in the deck. And that's why we are Aces53. All right. Been a busy week already. It seems like it's only Tuesday.
Well, with everybody having Friday off, or some people having
Friday off. Every Friday is Good Friday.
Good Friday.
Every Friday is a Good Friday.
True. But people have their kids, so they took off. Extra traffic on Thursday last week was horrible. Going everywhere. It's just,
We went to the cabin on Friday, and there was snow. It was snowing all weekend up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, shocking. We were shocked because last I heard from my co-host on the radio show, there was no snow.
Yeah.
And we get up there, and he was wrong.
Lies, all lies.
I was cutting firewood, kindling, and I have a freaking mark on my head from a stick right in the face. My wife's like, you should wear goggles. I had my glasses on. It didn't go in my eye. It hit me right across the face because I had split it, and then there was a piece next to it. So the next time I split it, it just hit that and bounced it right up. So, one time in I don't know, many years.
Just if you weren't so manly and strong,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah. But what if I do differently? All right. So I just started, I became a pod agency, podcast agency so I put all, I didn't, I know we have a lot of podcasts, or I should say I have a lot of podcasts. You're on one of them, and I had to become an agency with Podbatch, and man, what a difference when you're get connected. I didn't take it that way, but other people take it totally different when an agency reaches out to them to put their client on there. Yeah.
Well, it's the Karen effect, right? Once you feel like management, or I've talked to somebody higher level versus a peon,
right? Versus just the person.
Yeah.
So what happened is I was helping the Brave for a couple of years, and I ran out of. I don't know what's going on with my co-host. She's too busy doing other stuff, so we missed a few Wednesdays, and I don't like missing podcasts because it messes up your numbers. And I'm like, okay, how do I get more people without begging everybody? So I've been doing pretty well on there with my inner Edison. So I said, let's try helping the Brave. Oh my God. And I should give them more time. I'm booked out this week, 3 podcasts for that. Wow. And then next week, so I have 4 areas for each week. I'm going to be booked out on that for 2 months, going on 3 months, because my Inner Edison podcast, I'm booked out until October-ish, which is over 6 months.
That's
People
awesome.
sign up and go, I can't get on your schedule. Keep going.
Yeah. Eventually you will.
Just keep moving the page.
Yeah. I've had one of the mutual friends that I was supposed to be on her podcast, and every time something comes up and they cancel it. So I sent her a Facebook DM. I'm like, I'm starting to get a complex.
Yeah, I had one I was scheduled on for a long time, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm sick or whatever. I'm like, yeah, you partied too hard over the weekend. But then they just rescheduled. And that's what the most important thing is, if you do have somebody wait for a while, accommodate them pretty close to the same week if you could, if something happens.
Well, using last week as an example, hit people up again, because you never know what their availability is, like you said. So I was going to Nashville to go speak at that follow-up event, and I hit up a guy that for 2 years I've been trying to get on his podcast, and it happened to work while I was there last week. And then another guy, I was talking to him, he's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm going to actually record a podcast. They use the same studio. So I had 2 back-to-back ones because I reached out to one guy when you're out there. So one of the things people don't think about is, yes, they're great about getting on Podmatch and all these others, but what about hitting up people when you're going to cities and just see if there's availability, if they have a podcast? Because you and I have never been in the same room for one of our episodes so far, but face-to-face is the way to do it. If you can be in the room, it's just a different energy than doing it online. Online is good. In person's better.
Well, it just depends on who you are. Like for us, I do my radio show in the same room. I do the morning podcast in the same room. It's just better. I mean, you can control the Wi-Fi. You can control the sound. You can control a lot of things you can't control when you're on this. I don't control everybody keeps asking me, why do you wear headphones? Brian doesn't. I'm like, well, I want to hear how we sound.
Yeah.
Before it's finalized and it's horrible.
I have the hardest time with headphones. Even like I love my AirPods. Over the ear ones, I still struggle with. I can't remember. I did
You just
somebody's
don't like the way
podcast.
you sound. That's why you don't want to know how you
No, I'm just
truly
not used to
sound.
thinking in my head's like everybody loves the Bose that goes over your ears too. I don't like them. I like the inner ear ones.
Well, my wife's the
Instead.
same way. She hates the over the ear. She prefers, and she hates the inner ear too. So she's a little even weirder.
So, no, I'm highly addicted to my AirPods, and then I've got the Bose noise canceling for when I fly.
Mhm.
And I happen to actually left them at home, or I thought I left them at home. I moved them to a different pocket in my backpack, and so I used these and just did the noise canceling from my iPad. It actually worked pretty well. First time to do that on a flight. But
Yeah, they actually work well. Those do. Mhm.
they do.
I have so many of those different kinds. I have the pros, the in between ones, the older ones. I have so many of them, but it's just because you lose them and then you find them again.
Mhm.
But you're right. Connecting directly to them for a podcast is great.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get stuff, I mean, because some of these services are really horrible,
Mhm.
and you just have to pass on a lot of people.
Yes.
I don't mean that wrong. Because it actually was funny was the guy who runs it, Alex. He's like, it's okay to pass on people. You should be passing on more than you're accepting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, some people are just looking for a seat to fill, and they need to get started, and they don't have a good network. You and I are very lucky. We got in the right rooms early on, and that's why our network's vast. I mean, we were talking the other day, like, okay, who else do we pick from? And there's so many people we've met through going to different events, being in different rooms, and being sociable, which you're better at that than I am. But that's where all the jokers come from for the Thursday events. They come from people we've sat in rooms with a majority of the time. I don't think we've had a single guest in the year that we've been doing it that we haven't met in person in some form or fashion.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, no, then who'd we have? The person I had on last week, I didn't.
That's true. Yeah, but you met them through another podcast, I guess. So
My podcast.
through your podcast. A majority of the people though who have been on here have all been people we sat in a room with.
Right. The funny thing is, Atiba, that's his name, right?
Yep.
They're connecting through Podmatch to my Inner Edison podcast. Sends this whole thing about how he does this. Here's his testimonials from Ryan Dice, I guess Qasim Aslam.
Yep.
Right. Qasim Aslam. Kate, I don't know, Katie Brinkley, and Steve Sims.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, okay, he didn't connect the two. Or somebody else, because it says Inner Edison podcast by Ed Parker. It's the only one I have my name on. But I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe.
I guess I'll have him back. But
it's a different podcast. We had him on here on Inner Edison, and he talked about some amazing things. And we're supposed to have him coming back. I got to check when that is.
Yeah, you guys were playing schedule tag.
No, it's just he went way out in the future. It's actually not. We'll talk.
Yeah,
or recording.
Yeah.
Well, all right. What do you? That's all I've been working on is setting that up and other thing. Remember, so last week we had the lady going through my website and how slow it was. Right, it wasn't so bad on desktop, but on freaking mobile, it was really bad. She said to add WP Rocket and a couple of things, but those you really got to go in there and tinker with.
Yes.
So I ended up just going, and this was the second choice of all the choices out there, which was through WordPress. There's the one you add on, and it increased mine by almost 40%.
Wow.
Yeah. So desktop, mobile. So by doing nothing, I went in and fixed some stuff and everything automatically. I didn't have to do much. And this one, I'm not going to tell her, but it's just if you have a WP engine, it's in there. It's for people who don't have the technical or don't want to go through and mess with everything and mess it up. This one does it automatically for you.
That's one thing I liked about WP Engine is because you and I went through it. There was a company before that they're like, oh, well, to keep up with your plugins and your updates, it's going to be X amount of dollars. I found out WP Engine does it for you.
There's a little add-on. Yeah, you can add it on.
Yeah, you can add on. Maybe it was $100 a year or something ridiculous where they do it and they send you an email. Hey, we backed you up. We ran it. It ran successfully. You're back up and running. And it's its own little world of when somebody sells you a website, you need to know not just design. Design is one half of it. Well, we've had Elena on here, right? So she does front end design, and that's when they hand it off to somebody else. So you have to, when people are saying, hey, you need to get a website, yes, you need a website, but then you need somebody to maintain and perfect your website once the creatives are done with it. And that's not something that a lot of people know. They just think, oh, I just need a website. But it's kind of like when you go to a car dealership, you deal with the salesman to get the car, and then you deal with the service department after that. You need a service department for your website.
Right. And before you do it, you should get all your keywords, research what you're trying to do, what you should do. So it went from so my desktop was only 69, it went to 91, and my mobile was 38, went to 78.
Wow. Just so those
And
simple things.
there's some other stuff that could be done to it, which I just haven't, made some changes. But on my fast internet, it was like, whack! It was so fast. Oh.
Well, that would be an interesting question, because I'm currently migrating over to Connect 360. We've had Joel on before, so I'm moving everything under him. And it'd be interesting for me to go and do it now and see what it looks like, run those tests. And then once they've taken it over and they've made the changes they want to make, and they're doing everything for me. They're doing a branding book. They've asked me what funnels do I need made, basically helping me get everything up and running that I was trying to learn how to do it on my own. And we mentioned that before. It's good to try and learn it so you know if you're getting screwed or not. And
just to know what you want done too.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you want, how can you ask somebody to do it?
Well, let's just say, people, I like analogies are simple. Once you mow your yard, you know whether or not it's worth it to pay somebody else to do it for you. You're physically capable of it. You can go cheap and buy a lawnmower one time and add in gas here and there, or you can pay a monthly fee and let somebody else worry about it while you're sitting inside in the air conditioning.
Right, you come home, it's all taken care of.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you need, so that's the thing with what my plan is to going forward, because I need, there's some things I want to make changes to in the way we do it, because if you watch last week's episode, she shows you where these certain key words are trending, and I was top of one of them for very long and I dropped, and it was because of how they made some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things you can make change, but there was a few things like this, just what gets searched each week for sales, for people to do keynote speaking for sales. How many, 150 searches a week, and it's easy to get the tag, that low. And it's really under your speaker page, you would do sales speaker, and it's not like having the domain, it's just how you put it in there, so it searches for that.
That's maintaining,
that's the organic view thing,
right? And that's one of the things I think Steve turned us on to that was really good. Juicer. So Juicer, because it constantly puts your social media on your webpage to help you get up in the rankings more. You and I've talked about this before. A year ago, if you would have Googled my name, all it would show up was former career government responses to
my videos were coming up. All the videos we did together would come up.
Right. But that wasn't until November this November will be 2 years. But so we're just barely 16 months in, something like that, of doing it. Making little changes like that can have vast improvements. We've talked before.
I don't know videos. I don't know. Yeah, but do you put normal stuff on you don't make any changes or any additional videos each week, right?
When I put them on social media, it pushes them to my homepage and then they show up.
But you don't do a blog either, right?
I don't do a blog. I do a newsletter.
You should do a blog.
I need to.
You don't need to. You need Cast Magic to do it when you drop your video in there.
Well, I already write it out when I do the video anyway, so I just should make it a blog. It's just one more step I need to do and add, because I'm already putting it on. Like I've got one now I recorded this morning. I'm going to get back to recording some here in the house versus, all the ones of just redoing the stage time, because I want to be able to answer more questions as they pop up. So I'll be doing a lot more of those, but I already write out what goes in them anyway. What drives me nuts is I wish they were consistent across platforms, because I'll have a good write-up, and then it'll fit on TikTok, but it won't fit on Instagram, because Instagram's 2,000 characters. Damn it. So then I got to keep playing with it and trimming it down. So it'd be nice.
That's what AI is for.
Well, that's a good point.
Because one of the companies I deal with, which is the mortgage industry, they have this 360 for your social media that they provide certain things. Mm-hmm. Well, you can go in there and go write it with AI, so you can change what they wrote for it.
Yeah.
And then what happens is it makes it longer with the hashtags, and then it won't work on Twitter. It's too
Yeah.
long. So then you go, customized by whatever, and you go there, click on it, and then you say AI make shorter. Okay,
Yeah.
done. It's so, I mean, it's like where before I'd have to like what words, it takes a few seconds longer, but now I just click the button. Okay, perfect. We're done.
Yeah.
I did, almost half a month of 3 times a day social media posting
Really?
for I normally do 30 days out.
Mhm.
I think it took me, I was at the cabin, so it took a lot longer because I'm
Yeah.
working off of my phone
Yeah.
hotspot, but I probably had it done in an hour or less. If I was here at my house, it would have been probably, I don't know, 30 minutes or less.
Interesting you bring that up. I was just wrapping up a book, I think I mentioned it before, called Be Seen. And that's what they talk about is there's no shame in repurposing content because you don't know when that follower came on. And not everybody's going to go back and research all your older stuff. So if you have good videos that helped explain your product or service or was a hit, got good views before, there's no shame in repurposing it and doing it again.
Or
That's
testimonials
Yep.
or quotes.
Hmm.
Get 52 of them and set them all up for each week and for 52 weeks. Nobody's going to know if you had more testimonials or less testimonials or more
Yep.
quotes or less quotes. I've updated all my quotes for all the stuff we talked about recently in the past,
Nice.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when I need to update. Well, because I'm in the middle of transitioning everything over, but that's one of the things we sat down and talked about last week was need to update the speaker page because it's got older speaker reels versus the newer ones. Because when I started doing this, I didn't have that many good videos. Now I've got a lot more, so need to rotate those out, different pictures, updated. I don't want to have the pictures that are too old. So
No, I have a client irritating me. It's like some people just don't get it.
yeah.
Yeah. So Fannie and Freddie are conventional. That's where you have a choice of who buys that loan from the beginning, and then the lender is the servicer of that loan.
Mhm.
She got a letter saying Fannie Mae has bought your loan. My
Mhm.
loan was sold. No, that's meant. By the way, we're Fannie Mae, and we are the ones that initiated this loan through whatever. Anyway,
Right.
it's
We were
she's a
talking about this,
doctor.
but it's levels of inexperience. I spoke at a real estate event last week. So we mentioned while you're there, hit up people, let them know you're coming to town. So I did a lunch and learn with a group. And that was one of the big questions is the news going around about commissions and what does it mean? We had a conversation of when do most people feel ignorant? It's when you only do something for the first time or you do it so far in between. Like people kind of have an idea how to buy or lease a car. Why? Because you do that every few years. But when it comes to houses, you're looking on average, what is it, 5 to 10 years between when people do it? Minimum of 2 because they want to be able to walk with their cash-free gains. But most people don't want to move every 2 years. And so if it's something you do once or twice a decade, it's kind of an ignorant process every time you do it. So I mentioned like the 3 dumbest times I ever felt was buying my first property, buying an engagement ring, and putting together a baby list for stuff to put out there because it's not something you do on a regular basis and it's different for every person. And it all depends on where you live, what are you buying, what's your background. I did all 3 of my loans that I've ever had. So I've had a condo, a townhome, and a home. And I was on the lease of all of them because when we bought the house, my ex-wife's credit wasn't good enough. It would have hurt us to have her on it.
Mm-hmm.
But in Texas, the minute you sign it, well, you're married. So it's a 50-50 when you go to sell it. So it's different in every state how things work.
So you're a community property state in Texas?
We are a community property.
So are we in
50,
California?
50. What's that?
We are in California. However, you should always, what we do now is we just add them on title because that you don't want them not on title. Even though it's a 50-50, you still have to go through all. But if you're on title, and then the moment you close, you got to call up whoever the lender is and give them authorization to talk to your wife.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that way they can make, if something happened to you, they can do a payoff, they can keep making payments, all that. Give them the authorization to speak to them every time it's sold to do that. The reason I'm like discounting is I've left a detailed voicemail message, which is shocking. People don't listen to voicemail because she wouldn't read because text, you can't explain it perfectly.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, thought it was taken care of. Text me yesterday. Oh my God, what's going on? Make my payment. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. I explained it. Then explained the fact that I left a full. And then she's like, okay, so this is, you're close.
Yeah.
But I get it. And I'm not trying to be an ass about it. It's just, I have somebody else where we're trying to help them get into a house. They don't, and their situation is very unique. I explained to them step by step what to do.
Yeah.
She does none of it. And people ask me, well, why don't you? I deal with adults.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do the minimum that is needed, I get it. We can make it easier for you on certain things because you don't need to do it. But if I'm asking you for certain things I can't go get, I need you to get them.
There has to be some involvement for you at some point.
Well, because I can do stuff all the way around where I don't have to bother you because that's okay. But there are some minimum things that you have to do. And I got an agent call me, well, what's up with this? It's like, you don't understand. These people are difficult.
Yeah.
And not that I want a perfect client, but it's, just listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. I wrote a book on it.
And are you working ETA for your second one?
Actually, I'm going to reach out to one of our people from our old network and see if she'll help me get it going.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you were not around when she came in, so I'll talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah. No, I'm not. So there's two things I decided this past week. I met with several people who have all done TEDx talks. That's one of my goals for this week. So one of the guys, I was on his podcast, Justin Mosley. So it's called the Brain Doc podcast. And he was on, he was talking about not only has he done his first one, that's one of his goals this year is to do another one. And that's one that certain people say, oh, don't do it because you can't promote it. You have to send it to TEDx and everything. But like having a book, it carries a certain weight with it that since not everybody's done it, even if it's a local one and not the huge, because I didn't know this, but I talked to a TEDx organizer. So they're all volunteers. They have to go through training, all kinds of stuff. And they said a majority of the problem with people who apply for it is the people don't want to take the time. They think you just, oh, I'm smart, I'll show up and talk and go. No, there's a lot of time that you have to work within, showing them you can do the 18 minutes, what are the processes, what are the procedures. There's a lot of time that goes into it. But the reason why it's, so popular is it carries weight with it.
Well, yeah, it's like the documentary I did. People I can't promote it because I don't own it, but I can put it under my, if somebody asks, I can send it to them. Because I have the full copy of what I talked about, which is unheard of. Thank you, Steve Sims. Shocking that he commented on one of my videos the other day.
Did he?
Yeah, I have a video that talked about
how why do you suck, or was it?
No, he said terrible. Told me I was terrible. What happened? No, it was a video about how they're trying to let immigrants, legal immigrants, get on that's first time home buyer classification here in California, so they can get the taxpayer money. And he's like, terrible. Yep.
Well, here's what we were talking about this the other night. There needs to be different terms. So, for example, if somebody's here on an H1 visa, what's the terminology for that?
They're on an H1 visa.
Okay, so it's not. So illegal is you're not here. You're not.
You just came across the border with no reason to be here, no matter what country you're from.
So it's not waiting on a visa. It's not married to someone else. It's strictly you walked across where you weren't supposed to. You're trespassing for all intents.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to do words like unhoused instead of homeless because she wasn't raped. She was assaulted.
Right.
No, she was fucking raped.
Yeah. It's the same in the industry I used to work in. It was what they call them IP, incarcerated persons instead of criminal convicts. So it's and that's the interesting thing is you can't be a convict until you're convicted of a crime, hence the term. But there was definitely a language change when you were in it from inmate to incarcerated persons. There was some places that were changing the term to residents. So it's just depends on where you are, what the right term is. Along that line, I'll take it on I was talking about this on somebody else's podcast the other day, but anyway, somebody said, you don't have to label yourself as divorced. You're either single or you're married. Divorce was a one-time event that you're no longer part of. And so if you're dating, then you're not divorced because that would seem like divorce means you can't do anything.
Okay. So you can't be single. You can't be single.
That's the question. Can you or can you not?
No, because single means you've never been married.
You're either
single. No, I'm telling you, I deal with loans and I check boxes and what that means. So if you've been married before, you are unmarried.
Okay.
Single or unmarried is what we consider. So you're either single, married, or unmarried?
Oh, that's funny.
Because here I had a thing where I had somebody checked this box for this one client of mine. She was in her late 30s, early 40s. We won't say how old she really was. Never been married. And they checked the box unmarried. And she was livid that wasn't checked single.
That's funny.
But that's basically what that means. Yeah, some people loose term. Single means you're not married. But in our industry, single means you've never been married.
Which you'd think it'd be consistent across the board. Medical forms, mortgage forms, you name it, government documents.
There's no consistency on anything.
That's exactly it. So
they're consistently wrong, different. There's your consistent. They're different.
That's right. So I think, like you said, we'll keep today short, but like you were saying, pod match, right?
Well, there's a lot. There's a bunch of them out there, but I like that one better.
For me, it's kind of stealing from Atiba. And I was always doing this on a personal note. When I used to travel somewhere for business, when I was a 9-to-5, I would say, hey, do I know anybody who lives there? And try and go do dinners with them. Now it's the same thing. I'll just say, hey, do you want to have a sea-based conversation? That is caffeine, cocktail, cuisine, or cigars. And when you're in that area, if they got a podcast, great. Like I mentioned last week, there were 2 of them that I've known the guys. I've known Brian for 2.5 years and Justin for a year. And it just so happened that there was time that if I came down a day early before my event, it could make it happen. And the same thing with that real estate event. I was already flying home. They're like, hey, we're having an event this day. Can you squeeze it in? I'm like, yeah, because my flight's not till 5 o'clock at night. And I almost extended. There was one more event I was trying to get on for Thursday morning, but they ended up filling all the spots. So don't get me wrong, I like Nashville. And I was a little under the weather when I was out there, so I didn't go out that much. But I normally will pick it as a walkable city with people watching, and I'll just go and spend the extra time, walking around, getting familiar with the territory. But this one was literally packed the entire time we were there, but in a good way.
Yeah, last time I was in Nashville, it was during COVID.
Oh, yeah,
you couldn't leave the table.
You
couldn't leave your table that you were at. If you stood up, you had to leave. If you were at the table, you had to sit.
Yeah. No, I think you can lick tables again now. You're fine.
No, but it was totally weird, because we did so much during the pandemic. With the different masterminds that we were everywhere, but still,
nuts.
Yeah. All right. You can take us out.
Yeah. So, Ed,
we'll have a joker on Thursday. We promise. We just
that's what I was
tell
going to
you
say.
who it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's Ed and I. Tuesdays, it's Ed and I. Thursdays, we bring in a special guest, what we call the Joker, which is somebody who has a unique talent or skill that we think you guys would benefit from. So we're here every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Was it Pacific for Ed?
Yes.
And noon Central for me. 1 o'clock for the people on the East Coast. Subscribe. More importantly, share it with other people. If there's something that you see, you hear that you think somebody would benefit from, send it to that person. Let them know what else is out there. You never know when that one piece of advice that we've all heard 18 different ways, if somebody says it, all of a sudden it sinks in when it's from someone new. So with that being said, have a great week, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.
All right.
Thanks,
Make it a great day. Bye.